What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazique, aka Unique Mazique, the hardest working man in sports and gaming. I am a fight guy, a Forbes contributor, and I also write for Heavy.com. I'm going to talk to you about UFC 249. Let's get into that second prelim. If you missed an opportunity to see me talk about the first prelim, make sure that you click the button here at the top and you can see my preview of Ryan Spann and Sam Alvey and other previews from UFC 249. But right now we're going to talk about what could be a spectacular fight. I mean, you're going to talk about guys who are running it up when it comes to fight of the night and performance of the night bonuses. We're talking about Bryce Thug Nasty Mitchell taking on Charles Boston Strong Rosa. I mean, if you just look at what has been happening with Charles Rosa's career in the UFC. Now, he's taken some L's. He's 3-3 in the UFC, but look at the bonuses. He has 3 fight of the nights and 1 performance of the night bonus, and that one came in his most recent victory. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I wanted to just kind of set the table there. Let's talk about the odds for this particular bout. Charles Rosa actually started off a little bit here ahead as a favorite, but as of right now, Bryce Mitchell is the -158 favorite according to BetOnline, and Charles Rosa is +138. But these are close odds, as you can tell. So we're going to talk, first of all, let's look at the last few fights for both guys. Bryce Mitchell, ever since he hit the UFC, he has really hit his stride, has not lost. He's 3-0 in the UFC, 12-1 overall. These guys are almost the exact same size, but they fight somewhat differently here. And we're going to talk about styles in a second. But Bryce Mitchell, he has wins over Tyler Diamond, Bobby Moffitt, and Matt Sales. The last 2 fights got him performance of the night bonuses. He won fight of the night for his fight against Bobby Moffitt, and then he won performance of the night with one of the most spectacular submissions you're going to find. He took care of Matt Sales, and that was back in December. So his turnaround really hasn't been as long as some of the other guys who have been sitting and waiting for fights, which I think that could play a part in this fight as we go ahead and look ahead and look at some of the other guys who are going to be fighting on this card. But Bryce is a spectacular submissions fighter. He reminds me a lot of Jason Knight, but I would say a little bit sharper, but he reminds me a lot of Jason Knight in the fact that when he is on the feet, he's a bit of a brawler, but where he really seems to really excel is when that fight goes to the ground. He's very innovative off his back. He's very innovative just on the ground, period, chasing submissions. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Now, if you look at Charles Rosa's last fights, as I mentioned, he won his last fight against Manny Bermudez, which was a really impressive victory. If you want to talk about some of the biggest underachievers in the UFC, you got to look at Manny Bermudez. He was thought to be just this super prospect, but things just didn't quite come together. But part of the reason things didn't come together is because he fell victim to Charles Rosa arm barring him in their last fight. That took place back in October. Unfortunately for Rosa, the fight before that, he was stopped. 1-punch scintillating knockout at the hands of Shane Burgos, who is a fantastic young fighter. But before that, Charles Rosa pulls out a very solid unanimous decision victory over Kyle Bochniak. So he's been alternating wins and losses since he joined the UFC. Now, if he continues his pattern, he's going to lose to Bryce Mitchell, but I'm quite sure he's looking to put together his first win streak since joining the UFC. If you're looking at who's trending up or down, right, this one is a little difficult to talk about. I mean, because like I said, he's going up and down if we're talking about Rosa, but I'd still have to lean towards Bryce Mitchell as a guy who's trending up. He is really just grabbing people with his personality. He's got this really raw kind of just kind of like just ultra common man, sort of a bad boy common man, sort of a persona, and people are really taken to it. And on top of that, he's won 3 fights in a row, and his last one is a spectacular submission that was highlight reel worthy against Matt Sales. That said, you got to consider Charles Rosa an absolute fan favorite style fighter because of all of these fight of the nights, these performance of the night, outings that he's putting together. I still would have to say I lean towards Bryce Mitchell as far as whose arrow is trending up right now. But as I always say, Trends don't win fights. Let's look at some of the numbers and how this breaks down. Now, neither one of these guys is great at avoiding shots. They're going to eat some. They are going to eat some. Well, honestly, Charles Rosa is probably a little worse at it. And I think some of those numbers got a little bit overblown in some of the fights he's had, but he is a brawler. He's absorbing over 4 significant strikes per minute. That's a lot. Bryce Mitchell, on the other hand, is down here at 1.81, which shows you for him, he gets that fight to the ground as soon as he can. But it's weird because if you look at his takedown average and his takedown accuracy, he's only actually landing 28% of his takedowns. So the fight is getting to the ground some way, shape, or form for him. A lot of it is with body clashes. It's different situations. Sometimes maybe he's taken down, but he's able to maneuver and get into an advantageous position when he's on the ground. And for him, that can look a lot of different ways. But Charles Rosa has been a more prolific takedown guy with 2.8 takedowns per 15 minutes compared to 1.75 for Bryce Mitchell. And even Rosa's takedown accuracy has been a little bit better, even though it hasn't been great, at 34%. And neither guy has really defended takedowns well. As a matter of fact, Bryce Mitchell only has 33% takedown defense. But for him, that can be a little bit deceiving because he is so comfortable on the ground. If you look at the numbers, you're pretty even there. So you're going to really this is going to come down to style and who's able to execute their style or their brand of brawling / grappling the most. Looking at the tail of the tape, you don't get much of an edge there. Both guys are about 5'10", almost physically identical. For me, if this fight goes to the ground, I still have to favor, I just have to favor Bryce Mitchell. I just think his game is a little bit more diverse. Now, I know that Charles Rosa submitted Manny Bermudez, and Manny Bermudez is a fantastic grappler. But I do think that Manny was a little bit compromised physically, just not able to make weight, just coming in, just not his best. And I don't want to take anything away from Rosa, but I don't think he's going to be facing somebody in Bryce Mitchell who's going to be physically compromised or not able to grapple at his best. And I just don't know that Charles Rosa has the grappling chops to handle him there. So I think Rosa's best chance to win is to keep this fight standing, hopefully to hurt Bryce Mitchell on the feet. If he's unable to do that and it goes to the ground and we get a sloppy kind of a brawl, I think Bryce Mitchell ultimately takes control of this fight. And I think he wins it by a decision. I don't think he submits him, but I do think he wins. I do think he wins this fight by submission, mostly based on top control and just overall being the man in charge of most of these skirmishes and most of the action. So that's my pick for this one. I'm going with the favorite. I appreciate you watching as always. If you have not yet subscribed to this channel, make sure you do. I'll be going over every single fight on the UFC 249 card. As always, God bless and peace.